Telltale Games is now in the dust. Its company based in California shut down back in October of 2018, and all of the games that they have developed are the last pieces of evidence that their studio existed. A few of their games had sold well and were well known, while others were not so much. But the series that kicked off their studio's success, in my opinion, was their version of The Walking Dead, which was a 4-season series that nearly didn't even finish development. Instead of talking about the entirety of the series, I just want to speak about the very first installment into the series, which was released in 2012 and named, well, The Walking Dead. When I played this game for the first time back years ago, I was absolutely enthralled. This was the first time where I had played a video game and had been so invested into the characters, and I still think that among all of the games that I have played, this one easily takes the cake in emotional investment. The storytelling was excellent. The voice acting performances were stellar, and the animations were okay. But the ending to this game is a great example of how to wrap up a story, or at least a chapter, of a larger series. This scene, right here. It was the resolution of all the prior episodes all wrapped up in a heart-wrenching 10-minute scene between the player and the little girl that they've spent the whole game protecting. Every single choice that the player had made led Lee to this point, and there was no going back. This was the end. But although some may view the ending as tragic and desolate, the game had received all sorts of praise and was the recipient of dozens of Game of the Year awards, with the final episode of the game receiving the highest ratings of the 5 that were released. But why? Why was the ending to this game so praised despite the tragic ending that occurs? I mean, there have been many instances of games angering a portion of their player base over the death of a main character, such as Joel from The Last of Us, but what differentiates this game's ending with the death of Lee Everett from the others? In this video, I'll be analyzing a few aspects of this game, with all of them relating to the final scene between Lee and Clementine. I'd like to start this off with the definition of plot armor. Plot armor usually refers to a character of a piece of fiction being able to survive just about anything because they are necessary for the plot to continue. In the context of Lee Everett, the player had controlled him for 5 full episodes, lasting a few hours each, allowing the player to form a bond with him and choose their actions accordingly for the best interests of Clementine. Practically the whole game, from the moment when the two meet in Georgia to their final moments together, you choose the choices that protect her, and your choices would reflect on her actions as well.
Like shit, right, Lee?
The characters that Lee meets across this game also have this principle apply to them, but in the opposite way. Nobody in this universe is safe. Moments after meeting Clementine, Lee is introduced to more characters, with one of them being Sean Green, and goes to their farm to witness his death just a day later. Lee then finds a group in a nearby city, only for his choices to affect whether Doug or Carly will live. From the very beginning of the game, it is made very clear to the player that their choices matter, but more importantly, that no one is safe. These characters are in the midst of an apocalypse, and everybody is subject to dying at any point, including Clementine. Throughout the story, the goal of protecting her at all costs had been hammered into the game, and when Lee's bite was revealed to the player at the end of the 4th chapter, a stark reaction was generated from me. The thought of facing mortality at this point of the game seemed unreal, as everything Lee had been put through led to this, a bite that ensured certain death in hours. There's even a glimmer of hope given to the player, as they are given the option to saw off the bitten limb to avoid turning, but it doesn't matter in the long run. And this leads me to my next point. Lee is going to die, and there's nothing you can do about it. Because the player was powerless to change anything that happens after the bite, the game stays true to its depressing nature. I mean, it even makes you spam a button that has previously impelled Lee to defeat a walker, or hold a door closed, with it working nearly every single time. And in this final scene between him and Clementine, Lee tries to get up, to no avail, twice. But no matter how fast you can mash this button, Lee falls back down. Think about every single time you've played a game or watched a film where the protagonist prevails out of sheer will or determination. How many times it ends with a happy ending and the characters all come to some sort of closure and happiness. This game does not do that, to put it simply. Lee has no plot armor here, and he is powerless to change anything that is happening around him. This is highlighted by his inability to get up, despite all the times he has overcome what was thrown at him. One of the most praised aspects of this game was its harsh tone and emotional storytelling, and this ending stays true to this. I believe that the ending of the 5th episode was the reason that it was so acclaimed. Lee was absolutely helpless. There's nothing that he or the player can do, even though it seems like Lee's story wasn't finished. Or was it? We were introduced to Lee Everett as a criminal on his way to prison after he had killed someone his wife had been sleeping with. On first impressions, we can see that he was a criminal before the apocalypse happened, and although we take the role of him and shape his choices from that point forward, we know that his past haunts him throughout the story. In addition to his criminal past, he was also estranged from his old family, which he deeply despises himself for. When visiting his family's pharmacy in the first episode, Lee is seen reminiscing over a photo of him and his family together, only for him to rip himself out of the picture. Shortly after, a conversation with Clementine reveals that he still loves his family and wishes he had been there when the apocalypse happened. After what happened with the state senator, it's presumed that his family had cut ties with him. His only family besides his immediate family was his wife, and that went down the drain. Now that the apocalypse had ended the world, the closest thing that Lee had to family was Clementine. Although their early interactions were very sudden and a bit awkward, Lee had taken the responsibility of protecting her no matter what. This was his chance at redemption. He wasn't a good man, but Clementine was innocent. And so, keeping her under his wing was his chance at redemption. Throughout the 5 episodes, Lee does everything in his power to keep her safe. At the end of the 4th episode, when she goes missing, he gets bitten. However, his goal doesn't change. The entirety of the 5th episode revolves around getting her back to safety, and at the end, his goal is achieved, but at the cost of his life. The situation was tragic, but I believe he wouldn't have it any other way. Clementine was safe. He was a changed man. He did do terrible things since the beginning of the apocalypse, but it was in the interests of protecting those near him. In the end, his goal was achieved. He was dying, but he could have peace of mind knowing that he did the best he could. He gave it all he had, and that was enough. Although Telltale is now out of business, I believe that their impact on the genre of adventure games made them a staple in the game industry. Their version of The Walking Dead made waves in all aspects, and although some of the later seasons were received with mixed reactions, I truly believe that Season 1 of The Walking Dead was the best game they've made. The ending to the 5 episodes was possibly the greatest and most tragic scene in the series, and that is why it is absolutely brilliant. Thanks for stopping by. If you've never played this game before, and for some reason decided to watch this entire video, I highly suggest you play it, even if you already know the ending. The game will not disappoint you. And if you're new here, be sure to subscribe, and leave a like if you enjoyed. It really helps me out. I appreciate every single one of you, and I read all of the comments, so don't be shy to leave a thought or something that I missed below. Again, thanks for watching, and have a great day. Or night.